Podcourts.
Hi, I'm Chris Oddo for Podcourts, the Courts Magazine podcast that flirts with the lines.
Chris,
how are you?
I'm all good. How are you?
I'm happy to see you.
Yeah, your camera thing is working better. You're looking normal daylight now.
I spent a long time working on it this morning because we didn't have a lot of light. It's a whole different story, but I got a couple lights around the room.
Oh, okay.
Not looking as cozy as yours, I think. Yours looks really cool. Well, I think
cozy sounds like a polite way of saying absolute dump.
It looks lovely to me. It looks very nice. I'm going to read a little intro because I think I just read it, but perhaps it didn't come out before you joined the chat. So briefly, I'll say what I want to say here, which is, as a founder of the art of ping-pong, that's correct, right?
Yep.
Algy Batten has been celebrating the popularity and subculture of ping pong by colliding it with his passion for art and design. This is our guest, Algy. By collaborating with some of today's most exciting artists and partnering with some of the world's most prestigious retailers, the art of ping pong is raising the profile of the sport, or should we say the art, and introducing it to the public in playful, creative, and charitable ways. So that's my intro. That's a little bit about what you're all about.
That sounds great. I like it. I might have to steal that. It sounds good.
I think I stole some of it from you, as you probably had already recognized. So why don't we get started and just talk about a little bit about who you are and your passion for ping pong.
Okay. Do you want me to start?
I'd love it if you did.
So who am I? Algy, I guess, as you know. The ping pong story is probably... I used to play a lot of ping pong as a kid, but I think all kids probably did if they had access to a table. But then you get to sort of later in life and somehow you lose those kind of the things you enjoyed. Maybe they just weren't visible enough. And ping pong kind of disappeared for me for a long while, but didn't even notice it really until... So I used to own a design agency or co-own a design agency with a friend of mine, Mark McConaughey. We had it for about 11 years. And one time, I think it must have been around the Olympics in London, because all of a sudden these ping pong tables kept popping up over town. I don't know if it was part of an Olympic celebration or it was just pure coincidence. Mm-hmm. But another sort of design colleague friend of mine called Claire Stiles, and she's a proper ping pong player, by the way. She plays competitions. She's someone. I'm a pub player. My style looks pretty rubbish. So she's good. So she organized a tournament in 2012, I think it was, and she invited our design agency to enter. And none of us had played ping pong together in the company, and probably none of us had played ping pong at all in 20 years or so. But we put a ramshackle little team of 4 together and joined her tournament in King's Cross Station. It was one of those outdoor tables. And there was a few design agencies there. There was, I think it was like, I mean, I could get this wrong. I've got the trophy somewhere, although that's giving the game away already. I think Pentagram and God, I can't remember, 300 million. A few sort of London design agencies entered. And amazingly enough, we kind of won it by fluke, probably, as much as anything else. But it made us realize that actually the 4 of us, we kind of enjoyed ping pong. And it was a really sort of sociable, easy to sort of, to organize kind of thing. So I bought just a ping pong tabletop, not the legs or anything. And we just literally lean it against the wall, and then at the end of the day at work we'd put it on our meeting table and just start playing. And that kind of then progressed to inviting friends around after work and playing ping pong. One of our biggest clients at that time was Ben & Jerry's, and they gave us a Ben & Jerry's freezer full of ice cream, so we'd order some pizzas, get a few beers, and play ping pong and eat pizza basically. And Ben & Jerry's.
I like the sound of it.
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, they were the easy days before kids, when you didn't have to be anywhere after work, and it was good fun. And then I think the tournaments that we organized got a little bit bigger, and around that time I was running, it was the same time actually as that I don't know if you know much about it or not, but there's sort of this urban running culture started popping up.
Oh.
It's kind of not an antithesis, but an alternative to traditional running clubs. It's less sort of running focused. It's more community focused. It's more running through the city, the streets, in and out of traffic jams and stuff like that, especially in London. And there's one actually, they're all over the world now. There's one in New York I ran with a few times called Bridge Runners. I think they run over the bridges in New York.
Okay. Very cool.
One in Hong Kong I've run with before called the Harbour Runners. They run in the harbour in Hong Kong. And we used to run in East London, literally just around the corner from the flat I was living in this old Nike space, Nike Lab or whatever they were called, I think. And the founder of Rundem Crew was a friend of mine, or became a friend of mine. I hadn't met him before, called Charlie Dark. And we approached Nike and said, could we use the space that we have for running on a Tuesday evening? Could we use it on a Wednesday evening for these kind of ping pong nights? And sadly, Nike didn't bite. They were looking for other people to use that space, but I think they were probably more into, I don't know, I think there was a yoga night there or something. Ping pong wasn't really on their radar in 2012. Right. Probably wasn't on many people's radar in 2012. I don't know.
Put it on their radar, didn't you?
So say that again?
You put it on their radar, didn't you?
Yeah, we certainly put it on there. Yeah, ironically, we then did a ping pong event in that same space a few years later. So we asked them, and they didn't let us have the space. So we started just holding more tournaments at work, and then we invited. And this was as much my agency as it was me, really. We invited neighboring studios and neighboring sort of companies. We had a studio space in this big complex called Holborn Studios. It was a photography studio by definition, but it had a few sort of in some of the spare or old suites, photography suites, it had little small startup companies and that kind of stuff. So we started holding tournaments in one of the photography studios, and we had 2 full-size tables in there, and we held a few of these tournaments, and we did it at like £5 to enter or something, and the money went to charity because another one of our clients was BBC Children in Need. And then it was actually, not ironically, one of our designers, I think, said, why don't we invite a few of our illustrator friends to paint directly onto some paddles.
Yeah.
And we could auction it off for charity, still for children in need, which kind of tied into something I tried to sell into Nike. I had this idea with the Nike space that we would have this, I think at that point I called it Slam. So it wasn't Art of Ping Pong. It was like battle of the bragging rights. So you'd have designers against photographers, against advertisers, against copywriters for who was sort of the bragging rights in the creative industry of ping pong. Okay. And the idea of that was that we would, for each session, we would paint the tables or something, or the artist part would paint the tables, the writers might write on a table, and we would auction those off for charity. So the art thing was kind of always tied in, but it became much more tangible, I think, when one of the designers said, why don't we just do it on the paddles? Because it's something we could do quite easily. And we auctioned off these 10 paddles for charity. And we did it at that point through eBay, I think, was the only way we could figure out how to run an auction. And it raised about a grand or so for children in need. And we kind of loved doing it. And from that, I suppose, having tournaments, bringing art into it, doing a few sort of things for good causes became the sort of the start of Art of Ping Pong, really. And it's since then, it's just been a big sort of creative exploration. I kind of feel like I've had loads of things, side projects along the way, and it's quite nice to have something that focuses you so you don't waste your time with a million ideas. Right. All your ideas are based around the concept of art and ping pong. It kind of means you can be a bit more focused with your side projects other than making books and doing photography things. Or, do you know what I mean? It kind of gives them a purpose. It gives them a platform as much as anything else.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how it started, I guess. That's what, 9 years ago or something. Yeah, a while ago.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry, I rabbit on quite easily.
Which is more important, the art, the ping pong, or the charity?
I suppose that the charity is something that, for me, it's nice for there to have a creative project which doesn't have any pressure put on it, which means you can come up with ideas to do things for charity. But Art of Ping Pong itself isn't a charity. It's just the freedom to express or explore art and ping pong coming together, and where there's an opportunity, do things for charity. For example, we're running an event in Islington soon, which is going to be just a free to enter sort of tournament and stuff. But with one of our mini ping pong tables, I might try and invite an artist to come along to do a live painting on the table. And we'll auction that off for charity. So that the event's not for charity, but it's nice to have a charitable legacy to some of the projects, I guess. So I wouldn't say it's not a primary aspect of Art of Ping Pong. It's a sort of nice thing to bring in where we can, basically. And then the art or the ping pong, I would say, are mutually important. Like the mini tables, for me, they're as much a piece of art that hangs on the wall as they are a ping pong table. And I didn't want to create a novelty product where the game is kind of secondary and not really that competitive because it's too small.
Yes.
So it had to be big enough that you're having a proper, and I actually, maybe because I've started wearing glasses and always forget to have them, so I don't play on big ping pong tables anymore. I actually quite like these little tables, and you could get some really fast competitive games. Yes. And you can stand when you get used to the size, you could stand 6 foot away from the table. So I'd say it's mutually, is that the right term? Mutually exclusive? I don't know. Mutually important, the art and the ping pong.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm very much struck by the art element of it. It makes it so much fun. In fact, to be honest, before I started looking into what you were doing in this project, I hadn't really been inspired to think about ping pong, but now I'm dying for one of these tables. And by the way, people who are watching this might not even know that what your tables are. And one of the many things, you also make bats and nets and lots of other artistic elements that you put into the sport, but they might not know that these are ping pong tables that can hang on your wall as art showpieces and then be pulled down and played. It's a smaller than a typical ping pong table, but it looks, from what I've seen in your videos, it's really fun, and it's sort of like a different sport, a niche within the niche of ping pong.
Yeah, I'd say that's 100% right. Yeah. I mean, the idea for them came about. So me and Mark closed our agency 2016, I think it was, after 11 years. And so I no longer had a space for these tournaments or after work kind of hangouts. So I bought one of those little 3/4 size foldaway tables, and we had it in the garage here for a little while. So it became sort of garage ping pong nights, and they weren't too glamorous really, playing in a garage. But equally, I quite like our garage because it's got my old tape deck in it, and it's got all my old tapes. Oh, wow. So I actually, we've reintroduced garage parties during the whole COVID thing when you had to meet people outside and they couldn't come into your house. So we started having. But unfortunately, the garage is now full of stuff. So for a little while, we had this 3/4 size table in the garage. But after having kids, the garage became full of bikes and cots and old cots and prams and beds they might grow into and stuff. So the ping pong table kind of had to go. So I tried to come up with an idea about how I could bring one back into the table. And ping pong tables, they fold, so that's kind of great. But they're ugly looking things. If you have even a 3/4 size ping pong table folded up in your living room, it's the only thing you can see in the living room, and it's not a good thing to look at. So I thought if I can disguise one as something and hang it on the wall, it would get past Caroline's filter and she wouldn't mind so much. So that's essentially where the idea came from. How can I sneak a table back into the house so we can play ping pong? And when it's not ping pong, make it as un-ping pong like as possible. And if you hang it on the wall, well, why not then put an artwork on it and fully disguise it as an artwork? So that was the initial plan, and it was more from solving a personal need as much as anything else. And I met this guy. I've got a friend. She's a tutor. on a graphic design course in London, and I went to their degree show one time, and all the work was great, but someone had really thought out how they had put the exhibition together with the way the work was presented, and it was all made out of wood. And I asked Linda who made the exhibition space, and so I asked him to help me make a couple of these tables from this idea. And the first two we did as part of a charity project that we were doing at that point. And the charity project is that whenever we can find the time, we like to work with about sort of 21 different artists, each to be sent, and they're all around the world, each to be sent a blank wooden paddle, and they can do with it what they will. They've been turned into ping pong skateboards. They've been turned into sort of 3D things. They've been sort of deconstructed. They've been turned into mirrors. They have artworks painted on them. And so we had an exhibition, I think this was in 2017, of these 21 paddles. And I thought, well, I'll see if I can make these two tables and include them in the exhibition, just as a nice thing to do, really. And that was where the idea of having someone live paint one of the tables. So we had Mr. Doodle, who has since exploded as an artist, and he's such a nice guy. He came down to live paint a table, and his style is kind of mesmerizing. I don't know if anyone hasn't seen his work, check him out. He's kind of just, I think he calls himself a sort of, it's like illustration spaghetti. It just comes out of him, and it's a continuous line that keeps on drawing.
It's very cool
so
to watch.
He painted one live, but yeah, it's really fun to watch. So he painted one live at our exhibition, and there was quite a positive reaction to the tables. And I thought, well, potentially, rather than making them as just a one-off thing for us to have here, maybe there's a few people out there that might want them. So we started. I took it at that point because it was quite a rudimentary design that we had for that exhibition. I took it to a small product design studio kind of around the corner from us, and they helped me develop a simpler leg folding structure and a better mechanic for hanging on the wall. And we sort of, I mean, we've had it now for 2 or 3 years, and we're still iterating the design. I don't think design is ever a finished thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they got it to a point where it was sort of a bona fide product, I suppose.
How many have you produced since the beginning of the idea came to fruition? Have you made close to 100 of them already in the world?
I don't know. I would say over 100. We've probably made 100 just this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, actually. It's a really good question. I absolutely have no idea how many are out there.
Besides Mr. Doodle, I've seen a lot in the website. There are many different artistic varieties there. So it's just a lot of different artists that you've had come and design these pieces?
All the ones currently on our website, I think I'm right in saying, they're all our own designs. So they're our own sort of house design. But we've got 2 illustrator collaborating collections that we're about to launch. One with 2 with actually really good friends of Art of Ping-Pong. One is a young illustrator called Kellyanna, who I think we met sort of in the design world around London, and we've collaborated on a project together, on numerous projects together. Actually, she had her first solo show in Shoreditch, and there was a ping pong room in this space. So we collaborated on the ping pong room, and I made a big sort of installation out of 1,500 ping pong balls that went on the wall, and I made a full-size table that she then did the artwork on, and we kind of took over this room together that formed part of her exhibition. So she's done a table for us recently that we're going to launch soon. And then another one is a good friend of ours called Morag Myerscough, who, similar to me, probably has more of a graphic design background, but she's sort of broken out in the last few years as a sort of placemaker graphic artist, and her work's phenomenal as well. So I'm super excited that we're going to launch those actually next month. This year's flying by already. We're going to launch those in May. And then the plan really is to get back to doing more artist collaborations. I think a lot of it has been my designs for speed of getting things done in some respects. And actually, I'd like to do more artist collaborations again. We've kind of, I'd say, taken our eye off the ball a little bit with doing that. Okay. And it's something that's it's inherent to Art of Ping-Pong, really, those collaborations.
Okay. Well, first of all, don't sell yourself short. Your designs are quite awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I enjoy doing them, and I think they look great.
They do.
Yeah, thank you. So it's more that I enjoy the process of collaborating with other people.
Yes,
And
that's what it's about.
I like that part of it, and it would be a shame to not get back to that as much as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't also sell yourself short about your ping pong abilities. I saw you step back and hit a beautiful scoop topspin forehand on one of those small tables. Can you talk about what it's like to play on those tables? Because we've spoken previously about the playability being important. You don't want it to be a novelty item. You want people to actually play, and yet it's slightly different from a regular table.
Yeah, I think when you first play on them, they do feel small. They're like about 1.5 meters long. So they're about a quarter of the size of a full-size ping pong table. But like anything, I mean, I'm mid-40s and I'm trying to learn to skateboard because my kid's only the skateboard. And the first time I step on a skate deck, I'm all over the shop. You know, you just have to get used to something new. So the moment you kind of find your range, you can start to play some kind of powerful shots, really. And the speed at which it comes back to you, if you're close into the table together, it's almost quite meditative. It's really quick. And then you might step back to be more attacking. And then if you're being attacked, you have to defend, and you both get further away from the table, then you can get closer to the table. And it's different and it's energetic. You can probably break a sweat around a 1.5 meter length piece of wood, or, you know, a mini ping pong table. You can really break a sweat. So for me, that was the point where I realized it was a genuine product. Like, there's lots of kind of mini things out there. You know, those office toys where you get the mini snooker table things. They're only about the size of a shoebox on your desk, and you might play that for 2 minutes and you never touch it again. Whereas this, I find it kind of addictive. If I've got one, I mean, I haven't got a studio space since the whole lockdown thing, but we'd be constantly stopping and having breaks and playing ping pong and challenges and stuff. And I would justify it to myself that there has been some research that it's good for the creative process, that it's, and I actually believe that it takes your mind off what you're doing. Once you've absorbed, I like to think that once you've absorbed a brief, the best thing to do is to go and do something else anyway. Go for a walk, go for a run. And I found ping pong actually for me is much better.
Yeah.
If I go for a run, this is probably more when I had an agency and there were certain things that were troubling me with work. If I go for a run, I'm just ruminating on that problem over and over again and driving myself crazy. But if I play ping pong, I'm actually focused on what I'm doing and it takes my mind off it. And that's when a solution to your problems might come about.
Yes.
Whereas kind of spiraling into a sort of repetitive thought process about a problem often doesn't help. So I don't find, even though I run almost every day, I don't find running is the greatest problem-solving opportunity. Yeah. Whereas ping pong for me is actually better. So I would justify it to myself that though I was taking a break from my desk, I was actually still working, really.
Yeah, well, it's good exercise. And I think you're right. It kind of taps into a corner of your brain, maybe that, yeah, at the very least, it gives you freedom from your problems so you can address them in freshness when you come back to them. So I think everybody should have one at work, like something like this at work, for sure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they became a bit of a cliche, didn't they, of the creative studios having a ping pong table, having bean bags or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But I think I remember that phase. I can't remember what it was, sort of 2015, 16 or something. But I think it's come out of that and it's got longevity because it's generally good for getting people together. It is kind of active. It is a good opportunity to sort of think, but it's also quite social. I sort of think ping pong has lived through its cliche and come out the other end for the better, really, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've seen it grow then in the past, since you've been doing this? You've seen the interest and passion for ping pong grow. Yeah, it's hard to know if that's because I've become inward looking towards ping pong. Yes. To know if that's what the rest of the world is seeing, or once you see something, you see it everywhere, kind of thing. So it's kind of like, do I see it, or is it genuinely a bigger thing? I mean, it's the second biggest played sport in the world after football, so it must be doing something right. Wow. Yeah, you would think. Yeah, and I think what I like about it is
any age can play. Once you probably are able to get your eyes over the table, you can start playing, and you can even play sat down when you're in your, in your hundreds or whatever. There was a great film that came out. I don't know if you ever saw it. I think it was just called Ping-Pong, but it was about the seniors tour, I think. And it was a documentary that followed 5 or 6 of these players, and it sort of filmed them as they toured the world playing in the over 70s, over 80s, and I think even over 100s ping pong world championships.
Wow.
And when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, what I quite liked about it, because tennis is probably my better sport, but my best tennis days are behind me. My knees can't move quick enough and what have you. Whereas I like to think with ping pong, my best ping pong is ahead of me because the physical restrictions aren't so great. So I'm kind of hoping that's true anyway.
Beautiful thing. Yeah, when you have when your best days are in front of you, that's the sweet spot we want to be in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it might be wishful thinking, but
that's okay. The tie-in with tennis is important, and we'll talk about that. We'll start with your experience doing a Nike collaboration. I think it was bats that you were on display.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and you got to hang out with a guy who's pretty well known in tennis circles. His name is Roger Federer.
Yeah, I think some people may have heard of him. He's pretty good, apparently. Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of like a dream come true project, really. It was soon after closing my agency. So I think it was 2016. Because of close connections with that Nike space and the running, and a few of our younger members of the Rundem crew is the club. It still exists, although I don't go so much myself. We would bring in lots of young kids and do mentorship programs, etc. And some of them would then get jobs within Nike. And there was one super nice guy called Sammy who got a job within Nike and always had a sort of, had always enjoyed art of ping pong. And they were going to launch in this space, ironically, the space that we'd asked to do these tournaments. They were going to launch in this space the new range of Roger Federer's tennis clothing. And for an indoor interpretation of tennis, they wanted to use ping pong.
Yeah.
So we were invited to help sort of adorn the space and bring it to life. We didn't get involved in the table. A friend's design agency, brilliant design agency called Rosie Lee's, did this table with a projector that came down that projected it on the wall and these graphics and stuff. And the legs were made out of table tennis balls. And we were asked to produce either 60 or 90, I can't remember now, hand-painted ping pong paddles that would go on the wall that told a story of Roger's career, basically.
Oh.
And that was one I definitely had to work with an illustrator. I'm more of a graphic designer, so the actual, the intricate hand illustration thing is definitely not my strong point. And there was an artist we'd worked with on one of our previous exhibitions called Toby Melville Brown. And he had a really lovely sort of detailed illustration style. And so I asked him to sort of get involved in the project with us. And we didn't have long. We had like 2 weeks to get hold of the blank paddles. They're more the training paddles. So they're slightly bigger than a regular competitive table tennis bat. And it's before the foam and the rubber is applied. So it's the blank wooden paddle. We had to sand the logos off them, spray them all white so they became the canvas, and then come up with a storyboard, do a lot of research on Roger and his career and everything, come up with a storyboard of various scenes. So I think we put maybe like a wall of 15 bats making one kind of canvas in a way by getting them quite close, and had 4 of these. And then Toby hand drew every single bat in about 5 days or something, which 90 paddles was quite a lot. And then they went up on the wall, and I thought that was I'm obviously aware of Roger Federer from being into tennis and just for being such a great sportsman and gentleman. He was at the event to launch his new range of clothing, and he in particular wanted Toby to talk him through the illustrations, and he took time out to do that. So for Toby, it was, I'm not sure Toby's maybe a tennis fan, but Roger Federer sort of leapfrogs out of his sport into just being a kind of a bit of a icon in his own right, like a Muhammad Ali sort of vibe. So Toby was naturally excited to talk Roger through these drawings. And then for me, my highlight was probably getting to hit a few balls with him over the table. So yeah, it was good.
That must have been good.
Yeah, that was kind of something. Yeah. In fact, I saw my mum and dad at the weekend, and they said, I don't know why it came up, because it was years ago that they found the photograph of it or something, and they were going to get it framed. I mean, obviously it's taken them 6 years to get around to it, but for some reason they mentioned it this weekend.
Try to work over his backhand at all?
You can't really work him over. He's too good.
Yeah, he's pretty good, right?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Your love for tennis goes back to when you were a kid. And Federer is among one of your favorites, but he's not your actual favorite, is he?
No, I mean, probably because I'm too old for him to be my favorite. Generally, your sports heroes are from when you're a kid. So yep. Lendl was my favorite back then. I don't know why. I think I do know why.
Tell me why.
I've always got a thing for the underdog, and it only needs to happen a few years consecutively when you're a kid for it to seem like it goes on forever. Like I remember the Becker Edberg finals. There were probably only 3 of them, but it felt like that went on for a generation. And I remember Lendl getting to maybe only one final, but numerous semi-finals and never winning Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And you could see the determination. You could see everything about him trying to get over this one hurdle in his career. And even as whatever I would have been then, I don't know, 10 maybe, I'm not sure. That had a sort of impact on me, to see this guy keep coming back and keep trying, keep failing, sadly. And yet he was the world's greatest tennis player. You know, at that point, he was number 1 for the longest time ever, and he held all the other Grand Slams, but he couldn't win Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And as a kid, the only tournament I could watch was Wimbledon, because I think it was the only one that was on the BBC. So I only really saw the players in their Wimbledon opportunity. So I kept seeing him kind of lose, and I just kept rooting for him every year. So Lendl was my big hero back then, from the tennis point of view. And I think when I watched the first Wimbledon I watched, and maybe I was 7 or something, immediately went out in the garden, got a hose out, wrapped it over a couple of chairs, and got everyone in the village to play tennis over the hose with me. My mum tells me that story more than anything else. I don't really remember it that well, but I believe it to be true.
That's great. Yeah, what we get inspired as young ones. I think ping pong is a great outlet too. I mean, you could have done that on one of your tables. It could have been a Lendl versus Cash or something.
Yeah. Cash was a bit of a hero too back then, actually. Mainly for the Wimbledon thing again, when he won Wimbledon. Oh, he beat Lendl actually, didn't he? He beat Lendl in that 1987 final, I think. Wasn't it Lendl he beat?
Forgive me on that. I'll have to look it up.
I might have that wrong. I'm not sure. But yeah, Cash then got up into the stands and hugged his family, and that was always quite a sort of
97. You say so? While I'm looking
87.
Sorry, yeah. While I'm looking that up, can you tell me more about where people, for instance, someone like me who decides I actually want one of these tables, how can we go about finding it and potentially purchasing it, or is it auction only type of thing?
No. We sell them as a product. I mean, we hand make them to order, so they're still quite not hard to get hold of, but we're a small family thing, really. Me and my girlfriend Caroline, we run it together, so everything we do is quite limited capacity. But we sell them, and we make them in a local workshop in Hackney, and they're handmade to order. So you can buy them directly from our website. And then when the order comes in, we will put that through the workshop. But it's about a 4-week process for us to get the tables made. Or we had a collection in Selfridges, which was quite an amazing achievement, I thought, for us last year. And then we've since been in Mr. Porter as well. We had a collection with Mr. Porter last year, at the end of last year, and it sold out almost instantly. So we're now working on a new collection for Mr. Porter, which will launch later this year.
Later this year.
Exciting. Yeah, soon, actually. I mean, I don't want to give the game away, maybe even next month, but it's soon. Yeah. And we've got some other retail collaborations we're doing, and then some artist illustration ones we're going to launch soon. But you can buy them from our website. Yeah.
Cool.
We finally got
If we just follow along on Instagram or visit your website, there are ways to find out about how to buy them and also how to find out about what you're doing in collaboration wise as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place. I'm not so techie myself, so updating the website doesn't get done too often, but the Instagram is probably the best place. Or go to the, yeah, there you go.
Scrolling through it right now, it's so much fun. There's so many different colors and patterns, and it really is an artistic experience. I cannot express that enough. That yes, it's art and ping pong, but the what you've done on the art side is really, here's the making of the tables.
Yeah, I mean, even the making of the tables is a proper craft and art in itself. Like I love. I mean, I'm not a carpenter myself, but I love spending time in the workshop with the guys as they make the tables, and even so their part of the process is as much an art as anything else because they are all handmade. So
and these little makeshift nets are pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, they're a new thing. Yeah, we were just thinking around the lockdown time, actually maybe a little bit earlier than this time last year, like how else can we think about, I guess really we were thinking, how can we make our how can we grow our business and how can we grow our range? And there were those portable nets, the plastic ones that fold, that sort of pull out. And to me, I don't like that sort of thing. That's kind of, they're on the whole quite cheap and throwaway and made of plastic, and design's not a thing. Convenience is a thing, and I think there's a place for convenience in these things. But so we wanted to make something that you could put on any table, even if you don't have a ping pong table, even if you don't have one of our ping pong tables, if you just have a dining table, a work table, or even a sort of a picnic table in your garden or whatever. How can you have another thing that has a design aesthetic, a design appreciation, a design conscious to it, that when it's not a ping pong net in this case, that it has another purpose? So we again work with that same product design agency to develop these sort of, we call them the zigzag art net, and they're bent steel in a zigzag shape, and they overlap depending on how wide your table is.
Oh, good.
So you could do it on a tiny little kid desk, or you could do it on a big dining table.
Yep.
And it comes in 3 pieces, and you then hang them on the wall when you finish, and it's kind of like a triptych of bright color that hangs on the wall. And again, I think they look great, and they're more probably accessible. I mean, our art tables, I have to be honest, they're not, they're a handmade piece of art. They're not cheap. And the art net is still sort of, it's still quite a bespoke thing, but it's a more accessible product that we wanted to put out there. Still, if I'm honest, still, not cheap. It's an expensive thing, and we put a lot of love into the design and the packaging and how it's made, but they look beautiful, and I love them when they hang on the wall. This triptych of 3 colored zigzag metal looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's very cool, very dimensional with the angles, the way you can take the light in different ways.
Yeah, you get some great shadows and stuff. Yeah.
And ping pong speaking, I like that it's a solid net, and I like that most of the nets that you make are wooden, and sometimes you'll get strange bounces off the top of the net, which you wouldn't get in ping pong. That makes it a little bit interesting and different as well.
Yeah. I think when we used to play in my old workspace, if it bounced back at you off the net, you had a free shot still. So you could kind of bring your own rules into the game a little bit and mix it up.
That's cool. Very cool. I think our time is just about up, but I wanted to say thanks, Algy. It's super cool to learn about what you're doing, and it's gotten me enthused about ping pong, and I'm sure many other people as well. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me along. It's been fun.
Yes, pleasure, and we shall talk soon.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much.
Jeux, 7 et match.
C'était Pod Courts.